Our Friends Electric, which was a song by Gary Newman, huge song back in the day. And our A&R brought it to us and was like, yo, there's a song that's buzzing on the underground, like you guys should do it. And obviously we grew up with the song, the original. So we just went ahead and did it. And then it was our first #1 single. And it was with Heidi, who was at that time our new member, Sugababes. So we had a lot to prove. And it did extremely well for us. And kind of set the tone.
Why do you say you had a lot to prove?
Because we'd been dropped by a label. Not many people know this. So after that first credible album,
I'm your friend.
So after the first album, One Touch, me and Mutia were pretty much, Siobhan left. Me and Mutia were pretty much told, you're not going to do anything. And we got dropped from London Records.
Wow.
And so
And you'd been with them from the start?
We'd been with them from the start. So they dropped us and just basically we were left on our own. So when Heidi joined, the one thing about us is that we weren't that smiley pop band. And that's what made us edgy. We weren't even deliberate. Our faces were just like resting bitch face. Heidi comes from Liverpool, smiley, everything else. So we got battered at first when she joined because people were like, something's changed. It's never going to work. But it ended up working because she was just herself. We were all being authentic still. It was a very different lineup this time, more pop, I guess. But we proved, we had a lot to prove. And thankfully it turned out very well.
Okay. So you tell me what you're comfortable to talk with here, but we've seen like a few lineup changes.
Yeah.
How did that play out over the years? So would you be aware of them as they were happening or was it after the fact?
Okay, so Siobhan chose to leave and then obviously we were aware of that. And then when Mutia left, I guess when Siobhan left, none of us were in a good place. We were kids, And
you guys started together, like you literally grew up together, no?
Me and Mutia, we did. Yeah, I've been with Mutia since I was 8 years old. So we went to the same primary school, everything. That first lineup was a bit of a messy departure, but and then with Mutia, she had a baby. She was kind of dealing with a lot of stuff and she sat us down. That was better, I guess.
It's life, isn't it? Because you guys started really young.
Yeah, and she had just had a baby and we were at the height of our career. But then obviously my departure was very controversial because I wasn't actually even fired from the band. I was literally replaced while I was still in the band. And then I found out when everyone else found out.
So what do you mean? So you found out online like everybody else did or in the newspapers?
Yeah, I found out when everyone else did.
Such a disrespect. Who do I need to fight?
I've got a few names for you.
I'm coming. So go on. So tell us what happened there because... Again, it's not a label that I would give you, but you will say the Black Sugar Babe. Uh-huh. So when they were like... perceptions of turmoil or instigations of things happening, people would have assumed it's you because you're black.
Yeah.
Or do you say that's used against you? How did that all work?
Well, definitely I feel like in general when you're in a girl band, I feel like boy bands can switch it up, can fight, can do whatever, but for some reason women in general, we are judged very differently.
Yes.
I think it didn't help because I was never asked, and this was my biggest thing, no one ever asked sort of like what happened or what's it was very much like, oh, it must be her.
Got you.
Based upon speculation. But I've tried, like I'm not a perfect person, but I definitely have tried to have the utmost respect throughout my whole entire career.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think that with girl bands anyway, generally speaking, that is the dynamic that people see in terms of maybe one person is maybe portrayed in that way, but the fact that you are black, it was kind of more emphasised because, I don't know, you tell me.
But also as well, I think that there was a lot of pressure on me once Mutia left because, when Mutia was in the band, I feel like she got it a lot worse,
Really?
100%, yeah. Than I did. I guess they were more targeting the way she looked and stuff. She was picked on constantly.
And when you say she was picked on, by who? The media, by fans?
By the media. It was quite hard on her. But then when she left... and then obviously it was just me. I feel like I took on a brunt of a lot of things. And obviously being sort of, I guess when you're an original member, there's like, an unspoken sort of weight that's put on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And even if you look back at the Destiny's Child days, that Beyonce was getting it a lot in the beginning, even when the two members left.
I remember that because do you remember they were saying there's favoritism from her father, who was obviously a part of like the band's management. They were saying, oh, she was jealous because of the way that one looked. And then when you hear the stories afterwards with Farah and etc., that's not the story that they tell. It's not the same story that we were kind of fed in the media.
Yeah, and not even even the members actually said that. And it was interesting because even when I was like kind of taken out of the group, the word bully was thrown around a lot in the media.
That's a strong word.
But the girls never said that. And actually, they never really said anything other than, like, we don't really want to talk about it, or whatever it was that they said at the time. So it was just interesting.
Was that more media driven? Because that's a strong word.
Yeah, but I'm also going to say that in terms of media, that there was probably people in-house that was, you know, wanted to save the reputation of the band, and obviously perpetuated that, you know, and me and the girls, I believe, were definitely played against each other at the time, for sure.
Yeah. Did that have an impact on you emotionally?
Oh my
Because were these people your friends as well, I'm guessing? I'm talking in the band and outside the band, because it's not just your band members, it's people you would be like dealing with on a day-to-day basis, no?
Well, I think the perception of when people are in a band, they see it as like, oh yeah, you're just in a bunch of girls that actually just, you know, you sing together. But actually, this is actually a business, like a company is set up.
Yes.
And when you're a founding member of a company and they just say, oh, by the way, we're taking over your company and you're over there, there's a lot of things that, you know, it does for you emotionally. That also was my identity for since the age of 11. And so it wasn't as easy for me to just hop back into real life. I didn't know how to be an adult. You know, I had handlers. Everyone did everything for me. So it was hard.
Set the scene for me. You joined the Sugababes at what age?
So I was 12.
And then when 11. It all kind of went skew with the way that you were kind of exited out of the band, and not in a way that I think's okay, but it is what it is. How old were you then?
I think it was about 26.
Wow. So this is more than your formative years. This is like your teenage years and your adulthood as well.
Yeah. And just so we're clear, Emma, I've never opened a letter before in terms of, you know, a phone bill, nothing. I just had handlers. So literally, when you're ousted in that way, your identity's taken and everyone cuts you off. Your accountant, your lawyer, everything. And then you're on your own. But it has been the most beautiful journey. It's the hardest journey. But I've also found myself. And so that's the beauty of what God does. He allows certain things to happen because he has a bigger purpose for you.
And you've got other avenues.
So it's been hard. And I definitely still, I feel like dealing with the fallout, you know, legally from all of that. But, you know, we rise and we keep going.
You say that though, because I'm sure, was it a few years ago, you won, but because you were performing under Mucha, Keisha, Siobhan.
MKS.
Yes. And then you got the trademark back. How did that feel? Did that not feel like a momentous occasion to get? How does it all work?
So legally, obviously I have to try and dance around this, but legally we always were allowed to use the name.
Got you.
I always had the rights to use the name Sugababes, and there were certain people who were making it very difficult business wise for us because, but we could always use the name. And then we just grew balls and was like, well, actually, we're going to use it. And that's what it was.
Okay. So there were more business decisions behind this as well, I'm assuming. If you can't go into the semantics, if you don't need to.
Well, I would just say that we could always use it. So a lot of people think, oh yeah, you got the name back. And it's like, we always had it, but we were obstructed. So I think that's the fair thing to say.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But you guys are performing again. We know you're the Sugababes. We're seeing you perform on TV internationally and concerts as well. What does it feel like to have your sisters back on the stage with you?
I think just like I will always say that Mucha and Siobhan, we are each other's musical soulmates. When we go in the studio and we're writing our songs, it blends so quickly. And when we're doing our harmonies, what people mostly know us for, it's just like, it just blends. It's just, it feels very, very natural. So,
and you're a singer and a songwriter. Are the other girls singer-songwriters too?
They do, yeah.
Okay. So does that make the process easier because you all can kind of feed off of each other? How does it work?
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of like, you know, there are some days where like some of us just, you know, like we lean off of each other. I think every lineup we have a different way of writing. Throughout all the Sugababes songs, we always wrote our verses individually and didn't necessarily consult with each other. It was just like, but I feel like nowadays when we write together, we're more sort of like chipping in, helping each other, I guess.
You say it so nonchalantly, like everybody can just write music. Would you say amongst your peers, and you don't have to name names, is it common for them to be writing their music as well as performing?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the industry is like so different nowadays, but I think for us us, that's been something that has kept us. And it's just about identity, because I don't think, for example, Rihanna writes her song, but her identity is so strong in who she is that like she doesn't really need to.
Got you.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's who she is. Like she embodies that. So I feel like as an artist, you have to be able to be authentically yourself, regardless if you write or not.
And that is what's going to resonate with people as well. Okay, so question for you, and I like to ask all of my guests, especially my musical guests, who are your inspirations? And I'm going to give you a couple caveats. They don't have to be in the music industry, and it can be any genre. Who would be the people in your life that have inspired you in your career?
In my career, okay, so like 3 things make me up. Obviously, there is like who I am as a person, woman, and then, you know, okay, so I would say growing up, Brandy was my biggest influence. Amazing. And a lot of people say that because of the singing side of things, and then they, you know, but it wasn't necessarily that. Obviously I loved her music, but is what she represented to me. She was a triple threat. Acting, singing, performing, which are the 3 things that I love. And and she was so humble with it, but so uber talented. I think again, it sounds like you. And it was how far she got with it as well. It was the success of it, and that for me was inspirational. Obviously, my mum is a massive inspiration to me, just on the faith tip. And,
hi, mummy.
On a faith tip, she's obviously, you know, without being like, she's always just been like solid, and has been like a prime example of just like keeping the faith. And then just like my friends, like people who continuously, you know, get through hard times, like all of my girlfriends, you know, you guys, even doing this, like you said before, this isn't something this is a passion of yours.
It's a passion, but I'm so new to this, so I'm like hoping that I don't press the wrong buttons. But
no, but that inspires me. That's so inspirational to me. Things like that make me feel like, okay, cool, I'll go to this audition, or because remember, I've always like tried something and then it's just like worked out. So when I get like a no in auditions, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go back home and I'm just gonna my mic my headphones.
It's cool.
But yeah, no, I'm always like, you know, nervous, but then I see you doing this and I'm like, no, you can go back up and you can try again. So you're,
but I think it goes vice versa. I think I've got like a good tribe around me, yourself included, who'll be like, Em's just